So today we're talking about recursion for geometric sequences. That's like as opposed to arithmetic. We did arithmetic yesterday. That's kind of where you add each time, right? Or you could add a negative number, which makes it subtract each time. And this is multiplying each time. Or if you divide by something, that's the same as multiplying by a fraction, right? So if you divide by something, see, a common misconception kids will have is that, oh, if I multiply it, it'll get bigger. If I divide it, it'll get smaller. It depends on what you multiply by. If you multiply by a decimal, like 0.5, it doesn't get bigger, does it? And if you divide by a decimal, it doesn't get smaller, it gets bigger. Okay, so you can't just count on, oh, I'm multiplying, so it's going to get bigger. Not necessarily. All right, so today we're talking about geometric and also the geometric growth and decay. And that means basically, you've talked about that already in the past. I know you have. In 8th grade, I know you were talking about geometric growth and decay. So, all right. This is a little sequence right here, 12, 22, 32. That can be put into your calculator if you know how to do what we did yesterday. Would you grab your graphing calculator and put that in? I'm going to want you to do this top numbering system where we say that the first number is u sub 1 and the second one's u sub 2, just like we did yesterday. All right, I'm going to pause while you do that. Okay, so here's how the calculator screen looks when you're on the right screen, the y equals screen. And I'm about to put in my stuff. After the u sub n minus 1 here, I want to put the thing that I do each time. What am I doing? Am I adding or subtracting each time? Adding. How much? So I just wrote plus 10. Then I move down and say, this is u n min. Well, we say at the top here that n min is equal to 1. So that means the same as u sub 1. U sub 1 is what? That's what they're asking me. What's u sub 1? What is u sub 1? 12. So then I hit table. As long as my table settings aren't in some weird place, I'll be okay. Now, if, by the way, your table settings are ever set like on a really high number, do you know how to stop that? Like, everybody try it. Go to your table settings, put it at 5,000. I've got it on 50,000. That's fine too. Okay. And then I go to table and see how it's thinking. How do you get it to stop that? All I have to do is hit second quit. Will second quit work? I don't think so. I know that second off will work. And somebody last hour told me just hitting the on button without hitting second will work too. Let me check that. Yeah, it worked. See how it says break? Break as in like it was stuck in this mode and you broke it out of that mode. Okay, it broke its concentration. And one more thing I'd like to show you here, if you go to go to, it'll tell you where it was when you stopped it. So if I go to, I can say, where were you when I stopped you? And see that blinking light there? That means that it was right at the point where it had just added 10 to something and it was about to move on to the next number. You know what I mean? Because it was going through the chart, adding 10, adding 10, adding 10. And when you broke its concentration, it was right at that step. Now, there's nothing really important about that because as soon as it was done with that, it would have arrowed over to here and like said, okay, I was over here. I was just about to add another term, etc. So, okay, so get out of that by going second quit, and then I go to back to this, and I'd like you to graph this one. Now, if yours is like mine, it's not going to look really pretty. It depends on what your the window settings are. So I want to take a little time today to make sure you're good at this part. Hit window, and notice we're doing n min is 1. That means our first term is 1 up to n max is, mine says 20. Well, you can make that anything you want. Like if I only want the first 10 terms, I go 1 to 10. And that does the first 10 terms of my sequence. Then I'm going to start at the first term, and I'm going to step by ones, meaning I'm going to go up one term at a time. Okay. Then here's my x's, and if you arrow down farther, here's my y's. Just like before on my window, I've got both x's and y's. And my y's were ridiculously big here, so I can set this to like 300 or something, smaller than it was, and maybe my y's should go from like -10. And now I'm going to try graphing and just see how it looks. There, my first 10 terms, that's better. It still goes up higher than it needs to. Do you guys know a shortcut for this? One of the kids in the last hour, I knew about this feature, but I didn't know it would work for this kind of problem. He said, why don't you try a zoom fit? Everybody click on zoom, or touch zoom. And zoom fit is not one you could see right away. You arrow up and you'll see more choices, and 0 there at the bottom, that's highlighted, it says zoom fit. Okay, so it's a zoom 0. Hit enter, and look at that, it graphs it. It fills up the screen just perfectly. Now the only thing that's weird about it is at the bottom, those are tick marks along the bottom, and it kind of looks like it's a dotted line. So I'm going to take my window that it gives me from the zoom fit, and I'm going to say I'd really rather have my y's start at a negative number. That way, let's say -10. That way I can see when I graph it, I can see the axis. You know what I mean? I like seeing the axis better. So, but zoom fit or zoom 0 is a good thing to know. All right. So let's put this down for a second, and I'd like you to try putting that one in your calculator right now. And adjust the window accordingly. The same window ended up working pretty good on this one. So you should have just changed it to have a +8 during the middle of my formula and tell it to start with a 5. All right. Now we've already done that thing where we overtaxed the calculator and showed you how to stop that. So I'll move on to the next slide. This one is different than the other kind. What's different about it? Multiplying. If I multiply by something bigger than 1, will my number get bigger? Yes, it will. All right, so let's see what this one looks like. Put that one into your calculator. Okay, I got it in my calculator. It's got times 1.2 in the right spot, and I've got 100 as my starting place. But when I hit graph, I can't see anything. Why? The zoom is wrong. Let's do that zoom fit again. That's zoom 0. Yeah, that's pretty good. Again, my bottom axis there, x-axis, looks like a dotted line for me, but so I'm going to mess with my window a little bit farther, change my y's so that they have a little bit of negative, like -20 or something. And then I graph, and then I can see it better. Okay. So now, can you see that that one is curving? It's curving a little bit. That means it's not linear. It's nonlinear. This is not linear growth. This is what kind of growth? Exponential growth. And I bet you can tell just by looking at the equation what percent growth it is. 0.2, which is what percent? 20% growth. All right. So that's 20% growth. If you wanted to make a real world problem out of this, all we have to do is say, let's say that when I first started teaching, it cost about $100 a month to get somebody health insurance for their family. Okay, $100 a month. So I go in here and I have my starting value as $100 a month. And insurance hasn't grown at 20% a year, but it's at least growing at like 10% a year. So I'm going to go over and change this to 10%, 1.1. Everybody do that in your calculator too. And my starting $100 a month is going up by 10% a month if I hit graph on that. And now I'm saying, well, I'd really like to see what happens over a long period of time, like let's say 10 years. So then I go to my window. Actually, I have 10 in there. Let's say 25 years. So let's go up to 25. And then I have to have my X-max go out to 25 also. And then I hit graph. You know, see how health insurance, if it grows at 10% a year, gets pretty high after a while? If you want to know what actual numbers they are per month, if I go to my table, I go to second table, I can say, uh-oh, I think I have it in that weird mode. I gotta quit to get that to stop. Okay. And then I gotta go to second table settings. I don't want to be on the 50,000th row. That's ridiculous. And I go to graph. Oh, I want a table actually. Table. Okay. Now I can look and see what is it like after 25 years at 10% growth. Well, the $100 a month is starting to get pretty bad. It's all of a sudden $984 a month. And that's almost exactly what it does cost right now in Minnetonka for health insurance. You know, if you are a person who wants to insure your family on the group plan. So anyway, the point is, you know, we have to spend a lot out of our pocket to get health insurance now because it's been growing at an exponential rate. I'm going to stop this and go on to the next video.